bad is the situation and the risks associated with hydropower production?
Yeah, the situation's pretty bad almost everywhere in the world. If you look at U.S., September and October are supposed to be the lowest hydropower output months in 6 years. China, they saw hydropower drop by 30% year over year in September. In Europe, there's been a drop by about 75 terawatt hours this year. And what's happening is all around the world is having to lean on more fossil fuels to make up for the gap. And that's leading to, increased emissions. Ember, the climate research firm, says that emissions which were sort of looking like they might have peaked last year in the power sector are definitely now looking like they might increase again this year, even after all this effort through the different climate programs to try to curb emissions. And in fact, what we're trying to do is halve them by 2030, and instead they're still climbing up. And a large part of that has to do with these droughts. And as you guys know, weather is always, fluctuating and seasonal. But what we're seeing with climate change is there's an increased frequency and intensity of these kinds of droughts and heat waves that are really, really affecting hydropower. So it's a cruel irony of climate change that climate change is hurting one of the technologies that could help avert it.
Are there ways that gaps in hydropower generation could be solved without necessarily increasing fossil fuel use and thus emissions?
Yeah, there are. It's right now, if you look at China, in Sichuan and Yunnan province, for example, the government is looking at building new thermal power plants, as you said, which increases the risk of burning more fossil fuels and building more emissions. But there are other ways of filling the gap. One of the more popular ones that the International Hydropower Association has put out there is combining floating solar panels on top of hydropower reservoirs, using the two technologies in conjunction with each other. People are also looking at building power lines and using sort of geographic balance so that when hydropower is low in one place, maybe you can bring in electrons generated by wind and solar in the other to keep things in balance without having to resort to more fossil fuel use. But in the near term, especially here in China, what we're looking at is probably going to be an uptick in new coal power plants, the one thing that climate scientists are saying the world should avoid building right now.